and today I'm going to be talking about the best and worst books in some series that I've completed. So I haven't finished too many series, so we're going to talk about 10 today, but I might do another round of this video because it's actually a really fun idea, and I'm quite excited about doing it. So we will start off with Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Best book in the series, Siege and Storm. Worst book in the series, Ruin and Rising. There's a character introduced in the second book who I absolutely love, and I thought that their introduction made the entire thing much better. I found it really gripping, whereas the first one was kind of average for me. I thought the second one was perfect. The third one just disappointed me a bit. It didn't end the way that I wanted it to end. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Best book in the series, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Worst book in the series, As Good as Dead. Again, this one, absolutely perfect. I think the pacing is brilliant, the characters are brilliant, the way that the mystery is established is brilliant. I just loved every single thing about it, and I've read it twice and loved it both times. But I wasn't a huge fan of the way that things played out in the third one. I thought that it could have been split into 2 books very easily, and it could have been a 4-book series, and that would have been better. Things were rushed, and some things took too long, and it was all just a little bit of a mess. But I have already done a rant review video on this one, so I'll link that down below if you would like to see more of my spoilery thoughts on why this book did not live up to my expectations. The next series is the Pinch of Magic series by Michelle Harrison, and the best book was A Tangle of Spells, and the worst book was A Sprinkle of Sorcery. This one is the hardest one to choose on because I can remember that I absolutely loved A Tangle of Spells and the way that it feels like a different story, like the series is going in a different way, and I really loved it. But I can't actually remember many specifics about A Sprinkle of Sorcery or A Pinch of Magic. I can just remember more about A Pinch of Magic, which is why I think A Sprinkle of Sorcery must be my least favourite. I've got a feeling I gave them all either 4 or 5 stars though, so this is an amazing series and it's really difficult to pick a least favourite. But I'm going to go with A Sprinkle of Sorcery just because it's the one I can remember the least. Another series that I've done a rant review for is the Illuminae Files series by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman, in which the best book was Illuminae and the worst book was Obsidio. I just didn't like the way that this one ended. Again, I thought the first one was perfect. It was very much a novelty because the book is told in lots of different styles. There are blueprints of ships, there are transcript logs of interviews, there are email conversations between characters, and I thought that the novelty factor was amazing in this one. By the third book it's getting a little bit tired, and there's a new pair of characters introduced who I think got done a bit dirty because they was supposed to be one of the bigger focuses of the plot, but because there were so many characters that we already love in there, it felt like they faded into the background, which made the plot not feel as impactful. But as I said, I have already done a rant review on this series as well, so I will link that down below in case you'd like to hear more spoilery thoughts on those. Another series that I've read in its entirety is the City of Ghosts series by Victoria Schwab, in which the best book is Tunnel of Bones and the worst book is Bridge of Souls. You're gonna find a theme going on here. I don't often like the third book in a series. Tunnel of Bones was so spooky that I literally had chills running up and down my spine. I had shivers. I felt so uncomfortable and so frightened, even though this is a middle grade horror novel. And it's not even that scary, but the way that Victoria Schwab crafted the atmosphere just put me so completely on edge that even the smallest noises in my house were making me jump and making me feel very uncomfortable. Whereas in Bridge of Souls, things just feel a little bit lazy. There is a character who is just described as looking like Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, and I just feel like if you're relying on another author's descriptions to kind of draw one of your own characters in a reader's mind, it is not appealing to me. I also didn't really like the way that the series finished as a whole, but I'm hoping that Victoria Schwab will revisit Cassidy Blake's story in the future because I did really, really love the first 2 books in this series. A bit of a different one for you, which is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, in which my favourite book was The Subtle Knife, which was book 2, and my least favourite book was actually Northern Lights, which was the first one in the series. The first book feels quite focused. So you're in an alternate version of Oxford, and there's a character called Lyra who has a demon called Pantalaimon, and it's focused very intensely on them. But in the second book, they introduce the concept of like multiple worlds and the ability to travel between them. and because the scope of the story increases quite dramatically, it was just much more to my taste. The first one felt very slow. I tried to read it twice before I could actually finish it. The second and third books I flew through. The second one in particular was like, I read it in a day, and I didn't expect to have that feeling after finding the first one a bit of a drag. But definitely The Subtle Knife is my favourite in this series. I've also got the Summoner series by Taran Matharu, in which my favourite book is The Novice, and my least favourite book was The Outcast, which is a prequel novel. I was conflicted on this one because I've got a feeling I gave all 3 books in the series 5 stars. I really enjoyed all of them. I just thought that the way that The Summoner ended was more satisfactory than the others. Quickly had to change my battery, and now I'm back with you. But as I was saying, the first book in the series feels like it finishes in quite a good place, whereas the second book feels like it is gearing up to the third book. So it's a bit more of a cliffhanger, and I just don't think that it's as satisfactory. But the first one made it impossible to resist picking up the second one. That being said, it did take me 2 attempts to read this one because it reminded me a lot of Pokemon when I first read it, and it just made me want to play Pokemon. So if you're somebody who likes playing video games, maybe try and read a few chapters of this one at a time and allow yourself some video game time, because I was trying to force my way through it and I couldn't concentrate on it at all, and it was a bit of a struggle. But definitely my favourite in the series. And The Outcast was my least favourite because it basically repeats this story, which is a shame. It's an extension of a short story called Origins that Taran Matharu wrote before The Summoner was released, before The Novice was released, as a kind of promotion thing. But I'd already read the short story, so I'd read half of this book before this book was actually released. And then the rest of it just didn't live up to my expectations, which was a shame, especially because we read this one last, because we read them in release order, so it meant that it ended the series on a bit of a bum note, whereas if we just stuck with the original trilogy, it would have ended it on a high note. Another series which ends on a bit of a bum note is the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black, because my favourite book was The Cruel Prince, and my least favourite book was The Queen of Nothing. So the first book was my favourite, and the last book was my least favourite. I was torn between which one to put as my least favourite, because I really hated The Wicked King too. I gave The Cruel Prince 5 stars when I first read it, either 4 or 3 stars the second time I read it, and then the other 2 books I could not believe that the series was still hyped based off of how it worked out. I've got a feeling I just don't like Holly Black's books, because I've read a few of Holly Black's books that have been intensely hyped. I've enjoyed them enough, and then basically managed to wipe my mind of everything that's happened and imagine that I've never read them. So I just don't think that her writing style is for me personally. But that has never been more true than in the final book in the Folk of the Air series, because whatever the fuck was going on in this, I don't even fucking know. I have no clue. Don't talk to me about it. The next series I'd like to talk about is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. My favourite book was The Dream Thieves, and my least favourite book was The Raven King. I was torn between the first book and the last book for my least favourite, because I struggled to get into the first book. I had to try and read that one either 3 or 4 times as well. But when I did eventually get into this series, I read The Dream Thieves, and it absolutely blew me away. This is one of my favourite books of all time. I think that every single thing about this book I love. The way that the characters develop, the way that the story develops, the little clues that are put in that end up becoming relevant later in the series. Just the fact that it's completely focused on Ronan, who is my favourite character, and who is actually the protagonist in the Dreamer trilogy, which has followed since with Call Down the Hawk and Mr. Impossible. So quite clearly Maggie Stiefvater had a lot of love for this character, and the fact that he is like the focal point of this book, it's just the perfect storm, and I love it. I just didn't really like the way that the series ended, because I thought it was a bit of a cop-out. Not going to get too spoilery, but it just wasn't as dramatic as I thought it was going to be, and it all felt a bit too easy. The next series I'd like to talk about is Murder, Most, and Ladylike by Robin Stevens, in which my favourite book is Death in the Spotlight, and my least favourite book is Top Marks for Murder, which is interesting because these two are very late in the series, and they're also the only ones that I've only read once each. Oh, and Death Set Sail I've only read once, but the rest of the series I've read twice. So I thought one of those would be my favourite, but Death in the Spotlight has to be, because this is set in the Globe Theatre, and Daisy and Hazel have got jobs acting, and I love the theatre, and I love Shakespeare, and I love acting, and just seeing those characters that I love doing things that really intensely interest me was just a brilliant combination. This also has some sapphic overtones, and one of the characters has discussions about sexuality in here, and I thought it was just so important for middle grade audiences to be able to read a character who they have grown up with, who has gone from being 10 or 11 to being like 16 in these books, and who is exploring her sexuality and the fact that she may be a lesbian. And it's just so nice to see representation like that in a series like this, especially one that's been going on for so long, so that you have seen these characters grow and you've already got like those strong feelings for them before they develop into that. I just think it was great. And I really liked Top Marks for Murder, but I just struggled with it because the focus seems to be more on the kids' parents, and it feels more like this is Robin Stevens' attempt at an adult mystery, but told through the lens of a young person, which is an interesting combination. I just didn't enjoy it because it didn't feel like a Murder Most Unladylike story for me. Even though we were back at Deep Dean, and even though we had a lot of the characters back that we hadn't seen in a few books, I just didn't enjoy it, which is a shame. And the last series I'd like to talk about today is my absolute favourite series of all time, and this is going to be such a controversial opinion, but the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. Oh my god, don't kill me. My favourite book is Red Rising. My least favourite book is Dark Age. Most people say that Dark Age is their favourite, and this is the only one of this series that I have rated less than 5 stars. I ended up settling on 3 stars. There was a time when I thought I was going to give it a 1 star because I was so angry at it. There was times when I was thinking I might push it to a 4 star, but I just didn't really like it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I was that hyped, and because I've now got to wait for the 6th book, and maybe if I could see it in the context of a wider series, I would appreciate what Pierce Brown has done in here more. But it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me in the slightest. I thought... I can't say too much about it because it's so late in the series, but I did nearly do a rant review on this one, and I am currently rereading these with a friend. So when we get to this one, I will be filming that rant review and finally exploring some of my feelings a bit deeper. But if I enjoy it second time around, I can say, well, I didn't like this first time, but I'm enjoying it now. Either way, you're going to get a dedicated Dark Age video from me at some point, because the fact that people keep saying it's their favourite just absolutely baffles me. But I loved the first one because this feels like a YA, and the series started off as a YA, but then it developed into more of a sci-fi series. Like, Darrow ages up. In this book, he's 16. In the second book, he is 18, I believe, and then in Morningstar, he's 21. Or he might go from 18 to 21 in Golden Sun. My brain can't follow the timeline very well, but seeing these characters grow up, I loved. Seeing the way that he's so young, but he's already had such like a tough time, and he's got so much motivation to do what he's doing, I loved. The whole thing of like being at the Institute and having that like Hunger Games-esque competition between the houses and seeing who will become Primus and who, like, which house will win, I loved. Just everything about this book, and every time I read it, I'm surprised by the fact that I still love it as much. I think I've read this 5 times now, and I've given it 5 stars every time, and I still find myself feeling shocked at some of the things that happen because of the way that Pierce Brown writes it, and I find myself falling in love with these characters deeper and deeper every single time I read them. And it will always be my favourite series. Even if I don't like book 6, even if I didn't really like book 5, it's always going to be my favourite series, which is why I keep rereading them. And I'm starting Morningstar soon, which I'm excited about because I've only read that one twice so far. Possibly 3 times, I can't remember. But, yes, I loved all of the other books in the series. I don't know what it is about Dark Age that just didn't do it for me. Hopefully it will on a reread, but I'm sorry if you're somebody who really loves Dark Age, but it's just not the one for me. But the rest of the series definitely is. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, would be super duper grateful. If you've read any of these series, please let me know what your favourite and least favourite book in those series are. See whether we agree, see whether we disagree, see the reasons why. That would be a lot of fun. Check back tomorrow because we are posting a video every single day in December for Bookmas, so we will have another video for you then. And if I'm working out right, that should be Christmas Eve. Oh my god, we're nearly there. It's nearly Christmas. Our tree's still not decorated. Oh god. Oh, wish me luck with the rest of my day. Thank you for watching. Bye. Oh wait, shit, I need to change my jumper. I can't do 3 in the same top. Hey everyone, it's Alice. Because the others, it feels like they're... Shit, the battery died.